No one knows clearly what turned the Greene family into a secluded prison right in the heart of the city, where dark secrets and internal conflicts have lasted for many years, silently suffocating every breath of each member. But one thing is certain: the cold walls surrounding that old mansion hide more than what outsiders can see. The Greene family, a name renowned among the elite, once mentioned as a symbol of success and power. But behind that glory are stories never revealed. Each member of this family carries deep pains, unending secrets, and conflicts seemingly impossible to heal. Mr. Nathaniel Greene, the authoritative father who laid the foundation for the family with firm decisions and strict rules, he is the center, the axis around which everything must revolve, yet he is also the cause of the fractures in family relationships. Mrs. Margaret Greene, Nathaniel's wife, lives in the shadow of the very house she helped build. Lonely and powerless in the face of her husband's coldness and her children's indifference, she increasingly retreats into her own world, where only whispers and secrets never to be revealed exist. Some say Mrs. Margaret once held a shocking secret, a buried past that made her sacrifice both her happiness and peace to protect the family. But that is just a rumor. In the greenhouse, the truth is always kept more secretly than the darkness itself. The Greene family has 3 children: Edward, the ambitious eldest son with many hidden complexities; Clara, the middle daughter with a reserved, introverted, and sometimes mysterious personality; and James, the youngest, with a rebellious spirit and hatred of constraint. Edward, entrusted by Nathaniel to carry on the family legacy, always feels trapped between expectations and pressure. He has his own plans, but never dares to share them with anyone, not even his father. The tense arguments between Edward and Nathaniel make the atmosphere in the house suffocating, full of hatred that no one dares to speak aloud. Clara, with a gentle and quiet appearance, hides a soul full of inner struggles and unexpressed frustrations. She is always listening and observing, remembering every word and action of her family members. Clara is like a box full of secrets, seemingly knowing more than she says. James, the youngest son, is a blazing fire in a closed house. He hates his father's control and the strict rules. Every time James rebels, shouting echoes through the mansion, making the already tense air even more stifling. The conflict between James and Nathaniel is a fire that cannot be extinguished, a battle no one in the family wants to reveal. One of the most curious things about the Greene family is Nathaniel's will. In the will made many years ago, he stipulated that family members must together in the house for at least 15 years from the day he died before they can receive their inheritance. This is like an invisible sentence, forcing them to live in the same space with unresolved conflicts, smoldering hatred, and continuous hidden tension. This rule not only suffocates the family spiritually, but is also the cause of covert struggles for power and freedom. No one dares to speak out, but everyone understands that life in the greenhouse is like a cage with no way out. Every time the Greene family gathers, it is not a happy occasion, but a tense play, intertwined with accusations, scrutinizing eyes, and tear-filled silences. Meetings never truly resolve conflicts, but only increase the distance between members. Once during a meeting, Edward exploded, openly criticizing Nathaniel's harshness and control. Clara quietly stood by, trying to keep the atmosphere calm, while James just wanted to leave, ignoring everything. But Nathaniel, with his firm and decisive attitude, would not let anyone break his stance. After endless conflicts, a dark secret began to emerge from the Greene family's past. Family members whispered about an event years ago. An accident or a mysterious case no one dared to mention, but deeply affected their relationships. Some say this event was the reason Nathaniel became rigid and established that strange will, and it also created an everlasting gap between the family members. Suddenly, a stranger woman appeared in the Greene family's life, Helen, who was said to be an old close friend of Mrs. Margaret. Helen's appearance was like a fresh breeze, both an opportunity for liberation and a potential threat. Helen gradually rekindled old memories, buried secrets, and forced the members to confront their own past. This created an unpredictable chain of upheavals, making the family relationships more complicated and mysterious than ever. Beneath the peaceful facade, silent power struggles among the members unfolded. Everyone wanted to escape the father's control. Everyone wanted to possess wealth and power. But At the same time, they feared facing deep wounds, feared the truth being revealed. Conflicts, schemes, and power games pushed the Greene family to the brink of collapse. And when the masks gradually fell, the painful and bitter truth began to emerge. The Greene mansion was not only a residence, but also a spiritual prison, imprisoning each member in invisible chains. They were forced to live together, endure, hide emotions and pain. Each person in the family longed for freedom, but did not know how to escape the whirlpool of the will and family ties. Many long nights, they lay in the cold room, listening to their own sighs, wondering when the chains would be broken. The Greene family's story was not only about conflict and sorrow, but also about resilience, hope, and change. An unexpected event, a bold decision, or a promise could change their fate forever. Could the Greene family overcome these invisible barriers? Could they find connection and heal old wounds? The future remained a mystery, but the only certainty was these people were too tired of silence and ready for their own revolution. The cold walls of the Greene mansion not only separated them from the outside world, but also became a curtain dividing the family members themselves. The suffocating silence was not peace, but a shell hiding the simmering storms about to explode. No one could speak out, but everyone knew that every breath, every gesture, every glance was filled with unresolved conflicts. Day by day, the house became a silent battlefield where wars without gunfire but fierce raged in each person's heart. Edward, Clara, James each carried their own burden, and the disagreements among them turned into deeper, open wounds. Edward, the eldest son with eyes sharp as knives, always felt suffocated in the father's tightening grip. Nathaniel imposed not only the responsibility to inherit the estate, but also a series of strict demands on how to live, think, and behave. Every word, every decision of Edward was mercilessly scrutinized by his father. Their conflict was not only due to differences of opinion, but also in an uncompromising struggle between two generations, between power and rebellion. One gloomy afternoon, when the last sunlight filtered through the dusty window, Edward harshly questioned his father in the large living room about what he saw as injustice. "You are not my judge. I have the right to live my own life, not to be your puppet." But Nathaniel only responded with cold eyes and a simple sentence. "Here, rules are rules. If you don't obey, you will lose everything." The atmosphere in the room froze. The conflict between father and son was like an invisible blade cutting deep into the Greene household. But that was not all. Clara, the middle daughter, seemed to suffer the most from these silent wounds. She was like a ghost quietly passing through the rooms, carrying a deep loneliness no one could see. But inside that silence was a tortured soul, filled with thoughts even she could not fully understand. Clara observed every argument, every sharp glance from Edward, every yell from James, every cold smile from their parents. She understood clearly that each member was fighting their own ghost, but that battlefield had no winners. Once, when no one was paying attention, Clara found an old letter carefully hidden in her mother's drawer. The trembling words on the paper revealed a terrible truth about the family's past, a secret that could destroy everything the Greene family had tried to protect all along. But Clara dared not face that truth. She kept the secret to herself, adding an invisible burden to the dark days. James, the youngest brother full of passion and rebellion, is the never-extinguished flame in this cold house. He despises his father's suffocating control, detests the unreasonable rules of the will, and loathes the hypocrisy of family meetings. Every time James rebels, the sound of arguments echoes throughout the hallway, making the already tense atmosphere even more stifling. "Father is not the master of my life," James shouted one evening, his voice trembling but full of determination. "I will not stay here to be a puppet for this wicked will." James's words were like a fire burning in everyone's hearts, but also deepened the cracks within the family. Nathaniel looked at his son with indifferent eyes, as if those words were meaningless noise. The tension between James and Nathaniel was not just a personal battle, but also a symbol of the struggle between freedom and oppression, between the past and the present. Their quarrels not only plunged the family into chaos, but also raised a big question. Could the Greene family survive when each member becomes an enemy to the other? Besides the open conflicts, there were haunting silences, unspoken glances, covert blame, and pains buried beneath the facade of a perfect family. In the dark room, Margaret, the wife and mother, often sat silently watching her children with tear-filled eyes. She carried a pain that could not be shared, past mistakes, and extinguished hopes. One night, she suddenly called Clara over and whispered, "You know, everything I do is to keep this family alive, but maybe I was wrong." Those words were like a faint but heavy light, revealing part of a secret the family had intentionally hidden. Time passed, and the conflicts not only remained unresolved, but became like a ticking bomb waiting to explode. Clashes grew fiercer, and power struggles became more intense. Each person carried a part of the hurt, a part of the resentment, yet no one dared to open their heart and speak out. The peak of tension came one fateful evening when the Greene family held a special meeting to resolve years of disagreements. But instead of reconciliation, the meeting turned into an uncompromising battle. Edward accused his father of being the main cause of all the suffering. James bluntly opposed the unreasonable control, while Clara, after many silences, finally spoke up, revealing the secrets she had kept for years. The meeting ended in chaos, with cries, shouts, and threats. The Greene family seemed to collapse before their own eyes, but it was also the moment when masks fell away, leaving naked and painful truths. Those conflicts and tensions were not only signs of a fractured family, but also a warning of an inevitable collapse if they could not find a way to heal. Could the Greene family overcome such deep wounds? Could they find their connection and understanding again? Their future remained a mysterious unknown, but one thing was certain: none of them could continue living in the shadows of these conflicts forever. Beneath all the tension was a fierce longing to be loved, to be accepted, and to live freely as their true selves. And that longing could become a torch lighting a new journey, the journey to seek reconciliation and peace within the Greene family. In the large room of the Greene mansion, the atmosphere grew heavier than ever as everyone gathered around the ancient wooden table to hear the reading of the will of the powerful father. Nathaniel Greene, who had just passed away after many years of ruling the family with an icy iron hand. But none of them expected that the conditions in the will would become the source of painful days and endless struggles. When the family lawyer opened the thick envelope, his voice rang out firmly but hauntingly. According to the will of Mr. Nathaniel Greene, to receive the huge inheritance, all family members must live together in this house for at least 15 years from the day he passed away. Immediately, a deadly silence engulfed the room. All eyes turned to each other, mixed with astonishment, worry, and simmering anger. 15 years, a period too long to be forced to live with unresolved conflicts and disputes throughout their lives. An invisible sentence hung over each person, not allowing anyone to escape this suffocating house, where every day they had to face the past, unhealed wounds, and their own loved ones. Edward, with a face cold as ice, gritted his voice. Father knew well we could never reconcile. 15 years under the same roof, that's not a will, that's torture. Clara, with tear-filled eyes, quietly nodded, while James almost wanted to cry with anger. They both understood that this was not just a legal condition, but a sophisticated trap set by their father to ensure that his dominance would continue even after his death. The Greene mansion, once a refuge for a noble family, had now become an iron cage imprisoning each member. And 15 years with disagreements and conflicts that never ceased was a great challenge, a difficult journey that no one wanted to enter. The following discussions were tense, with growing arguments, but no one could deny that Nathaniel's will was like an invisible power forcing them to obey. The lawyer emphasized, the will was legally established and cannot be changed. If anyone leaves the house before 15 years, they will lose their inheritance completely. These words struck like lightning, pushing the Greene family into a dilemma. They could not separate, could not leave the house, but living together with those they hated, doubted, and were hurt by was even harder. The harshness of the will further ignited the smoldering fire of conflict. Edward tried every way to negotiate and persuade other members to keep peace, but he was also secretly hiding his own plan to break the rules at any cost. Clara, though always silent, became the subtle balancer. She quietly observed every step of the family and began looking for loopholes in the will, hoping to find a way to save everyone from this spiritual imprisonment. James, the rebellious one, had repeatedly declared he would leave, regardless of losing his inheritance, just to escape the grip of the will. But each time he was arraigned, pressured to stay. Besides, the will contained another secret clause, known only to Nathaniel's closest relatives. A secret that could change the whole family's situation if revealed at the right time. During the months living under one roof, the members began to realize that the will was not only a legal condition, but a test of their minds, patience, and inner strength. Each passing day was a battle with themselves and those around them. The imprisonment by the will made every life more mysterious. They did not know who was silently betraying, who was trying to escape, and who was holding unrevealed secrets. In that darkness, plans, schemes, and conspiracies began to form. The greenhouse, with its walls thick with secrets, was becoming the origin of dramatic plays full of surprises. The tension was suffocating as members had to live together under the pressure of an unforgiving will, making each day feel like an underground war. Time passed, and the next 15 years stretched like a dark abyss. Could the Greene family overcome this harsh test? Could they find a way out within the dense veil of past secrets and the will? Or would they continue to be trapped in the whirlpool of imprisonment and discord? Only time and the determination of each person could answer that question. But one thing was certain. 15 years in the same house with unhealed wounds would be enough time to change everything or destroy them completely. The day the lawyer announced the irrevocable condition in Nathaniel Greene's will became an unforgettable milestone in the life of each family member. But few truly understood why he set this condition, a condition that could trap everyone in this house for 15 years, forcing them to live together in hatred and suspicion. Was it just greed, power, or was there a deeper reason? Nathaniel Greene was not the cruel or heartless father many thought. On the contrary, those close to him knew he was a man passionate about his family and wanted to protect the legacy he had painstakingly built. But the way he expressed that love and responsibility became a double-edged sword, both keeping and pushing members further apart. The will, in a way, was a challenge, a test for each family member. Nathaniel understood that a great fortune only had meaning when supported by strong relationships, not just money or power. And to achieve that, he forced everyone to live under one roof for 15 years, so they had to face and understand each other, even though now there was hidden hostility. But that also unintentionally created fertile ground for conflicts and disputes to arise. When everyone was trapped by an unavoidable condition, tension accumulated and unhealed wounds grew deeper. Edward, the eldest son, clearly felt the invisible pressure of the will on his shoulders. He constantly struggled not only with his father, but also with himself, how to balance obeying the rules and maintaining personal freedom. Every day he felt imprisoned in a life with no way out, forced to meet expectations that no one could understand. Clara, though silent and reserved, could not avoid the influence of that imprisonment. She felt herself gradually losing her true self, living in a stifling environment, being observed and judged for every action, every word. The loneliness and helplessness grew heavier, weighing on her mind and heart. James, the youngest son with a hot-tempered and rebellious nature, saw the will as an invisible enemy. He hated the feeling of being bound, forced to endure people he could not forgive. Every argument, every clash with his father or siblings deepened his wounds, making him want to escape from this house at any cost. The imprisonment was not only physical but also spiritual. The greenhouse became a giant cage, locking each person inside with invisible but unbreakable barriers. No one was allowed to leave, even if doing so could save their soul. The most frightening thing was that the will itself created an environment nurturing suspicion and schemes. No one fully trusted anyone else. Everyone kept secrets, plots, fearing that a small mistake could cause them to lose their inheritance, the fortune they thought was the ultimate reward of a lifetime. And amid that underlying tension, the battles for power became increasingly fierce. Edward quietly built alliances with some family members. Clara sought to silently gather information, while James openly rebelled, keeping the atmosphere in the house chaotic. Outside, relatives and friends only saw a wealthy family with a glamorous appearance, but inside, they did not know that it was a picture full of cracks, where everyone was deeply hurt by a seemingly indifferent law. Things became more complicated when Helen, an old friend of Mrs. Margaret and also someone who knew many of Mr. Price, Nathaniel's deepest secrets began to stir old memories, unresolved conflicts, and unclear schemes. Helen acted like a catalyst, igniting hidden conflicts, forcing everyone to face the truth, the secrets they once tried to bury. She also brought clues about the real reason why Mr. Nathaniel had set such a harsh will. Part of that secret was Nathaniel's deep fear. He worried that without such tight binding, the family would fall apart, the property would be scattered, and years of building would become meaningless. But he also knew that this challenge would cause them pain, pushing them to the brink of emotional bankruptcy. Facing the will and its consequences made each family member begin to reevaluate themselves and their relationships with loved ones. It was a difficult journey, full of tears and understanding. Sometimes they felt like prisoners in their own home, but other times they realized that only forgiveness and empathy could save them from the imprisonment of the will in the past. During those long 15 years, each person grew up learning to rethink their life, mistakes, and neglected feelings. And those seemingly insurmountable challenges became catalysts for change, healing, and a new future they had never dared to dream of. Yet, there were still dark days, endless battles, schemes, and shattered dreams. The Greene family was still walking a thorny path with the faint light of hope guiding the way. The truth is, the will was not just a dry legal document, but a symbol of wounds, resilience, and hope in a turbulent family. It demanded that each person not only fight others, but also struggle with themselves. Will the next 15 years be days they are forever imprisoned in the cycle of conflict, or will it be an opportunity to find themselves again, heal wounds, and rebuild a true family? Only time can answer. But one thing is certain. The story of Mr. Nathaniel Greene's will be remembered as one of the greatest challenges in each person's life and a valuable lesson about family love, forgiveness, and the power of perseverance. The Greene mansion, already shrouded in shadows of secrets and conflicts, now bears an even darker layer over its vast space, the room where Mrs. Margaret Greene has been bedridden for more than a decade. 10 years, an endlessly long time, making the atmosphere in the house so heavy and suffocating it could be cut with a knife. Mrs. Margaret, the woman who once was the center of the family, who years ago was a model of gentleness and resilience, now remains only a frail, motionless shadow on the large bed, under the strict care of nurses and relatives. Everyone knows that since she became paralyzed, a mysterious illness with no clear cause, everything in the family seemed to start slipping out of control. That illness not only took away her health, but also brought an undercurrent storm, spiraling deep into every corner of family relationships. Heavy sighs echoed in the corridors, eyes filled with worry and helplessness, all creating a tense psychological picture no words could fully describe. The atmosphere in the greenhouse was not simply silence, but the repression of thousands of pent-up emotions, from sympathy to resentment, from disappointment to fragile hope. Edward, the eldest son who was already trapped under the pressure of the will, now had to face the helpless feeling toward his mother's declining health. He often forced himself to hide his weak emotions, but sometimes, in private moments, tears silently fell on his cold cheeks. Clara, quiet and reserved, became the one who cared for Mrs. Margaret the most. Under the dim light, she quietly sat beside her mother's bed, holding the once strong hand, trying to keep whatever warmth remained. But inside her was a battle between love and helplessness, as she realized she was gradually losing the only person who could be the family's spiritual support. James, the youngest son, though rebellious and full of dissatisfaction with the family, could not deny the pain inside when seeing his mother motionless for so many years. But instead of showing weakness, he often used anger and rebellion as a way to hide that pain, creating an increasingly deep spiral of conflict. Mrs. Margaret's health condition was not only a physical challenge, but also a symbol of spiritual exhaustion within the Greene family. It made existing conflicts more serious, the mental pressures weighing heavily on each member, stirring long-suppressed negative emotions. There were long nights when everyone was asleep, the sound of the breathing machine and Mrs. Margaret's soft moans echoed like a persistent reminder of life's fragility and unspeakable sorrows. Those sounds shattered the hearts of anyone who dared to listen, but within the Greene family, they also became the trigger for arguments the next day. Many family members began blaming each other for Mrs. Margaret's condition. Some said it was the consequence of extreme stress and pressure. Others believed neglect or even coldness caused her to weaken. Every accusation, every scrutinizing glance was carefully hidden in family meetings, forming a dense membrane between members. No one dared to confront directly, but Mrs. Margaret's presence was like a haunting ghost, making psychological wounds even deeper. Several times, Clara tried to talk to Edward and James, wanting them to care for their mother together, to ease the tense atmosphere. But each time, they quickly got caught up in meaningless arguments about responsibility and fault, making the situation even more chaotic. Mrs. Margaret herself, though unable to speak or move, remained the center of all emotions and attention in the house. It was rumored that she held deep secrets, truths only she knew. And perhaps those secrets were the source of the rifts in the Greene family. On rainy nights, when the wind blew through the old window frames, some family member heard strange whispers coming from Mrs. Margaret's room, unclear words, as if a spirit was trying to convey something. That made the atmosphere in the house even more mysterious and haunting. Rumors about Mrs. Margaret's illness were full of confusing and mysterious things. Some said she once had a rare disease. Some believed in a curse, and others thought family conspiracies caused this condition. However, regardless of the cause, Mrs. Margaret's state became an undeniable symbol of the collapse of a family that was once a symbol of power and prosperity. It also served as a warning to each member that if they did not know how to overcome pain and release past bonds, they would forever be trapped in this dark spiral. In many tense conversations, sometimes just a look, a careless word could cause everything to explode. Mrs. Margaret's weakness became the highlight that worsened conflicts, making each person unable to escape the shadow of the past and resentment. The Greene family, once a happy home, now resembles a thorny arena where each passing day is a battle with oneself and loved ones. And Mrs. Margaret, motionless on the cold bed, is the witness, or perhaps the keeper of all secrets and conflicts. Yet in rare moments when everyone puts aside disagreements, anger, and schemes, they sit together by her bedside, looking at her as if seeing again the sweet memories of the past. A family, a home they once had. It is at these times they realize that no matter how many trials and conflicts there are, love remains the only thing that can save them. In the Greene mansion, where thick walls not only separate from the outside world, but also imprison a family within broken and mysterious relationships, uncomfortable whispers gradually turn into fierce arguments, and from there, jealousy ignites like an uncontrollable blazing fire. 15 years of living together under the conditions of Mr. Nathaniel's will is not only a challenge of time, but also a battle of emotions, greed, and each person's unhealed wounds. As pressure weighs heavily on every member, the simmering conflicts now erupt fiercely, making the atmosphere in the house suffocating and dangerous. Edward, the eldest son, always feels he must carry the family on his shoulders. But the harder he tries, the more suspicion and hostility he receives from those closest to him. He believes Clara deliberately keeps secrets about their mother and the will to benefit herself, while James thinks Edward is just an ambitious man, willing to sacrifice everything to seize the estate. One rainy evening, in the spacious living room lit by dim yellow lights, the three siblings had an uncompromising quarrel. Edward, with a cold voice, accused Clara of hiding the truth about their mother's health, preventing everyone from making clear decisions. Clara responded with eyes sparkling with anger and betrayal, accusing Edward of being selfish and indifferent to others' feelings. James, the youngest son with a fiery temper, could no longer remain calm. He shouted insults at both, calling them hypocrites who only care about personal gain and forget family ties. We're trapped in this house because of the will, but none of us really wants to understand or forgive each other. That argument was not only an emotional explosion, but also a revelation of resentment, jealousy, and hatred accumulated over many years. Harsh words stabbed each person's heart like knives, but no one could calm the situation. Instead, the wounds deepened and hatred grew. In the darkness of the room, Mrs. Margaret lay silently on the sickbed. seemingly the only one witnessing all these conflicts without being able to stop them. But this silence made the family members even more uneasy, as they did not know she held secrets that could change everything. The conflicts did not only occur among the siblings, but also infiltrated every relationship in the family. Close relatives, longtime servants, and medical staff could not avoid being drawn into the spiral of disputes and suspicions. Some began to suspect Clara was exploiting their mother's condition to manipulate the family, while Edward was rumored to be plotting to eliminate his siblings to monopolize the assets. James became the focus of rumors about mental instability and the risk of causing unpredictable consequences. During family meals, instead of warm stories and joyful laughter, there were only cold stares and covert hostile words. Every sentence, every action was carefully considered as a tactic in a harsh power game. Tensions peaked one night when Edward discovered a secret letter in Clara's room containing information that could collapse the entire family if revealed. Suspicion flared like a fierce fire, prompting Edward to confront Clara in a heated debate witnessed by James and the servants. The confrontation not only exposed deep secrets, but also caused family relationships to break beyond repair. Accusations, dark schemes, and long-buried pains exploded together in an emotional storm no one could stop. But there was something surprising. In moments that seemed like falling into the abyss, there were still rare moments of sympathy and understanding. Clara and Edward, despite full of conflicts, still could not deny the blood ties existing inside them, even though it was covered by the dust of jealousy and misunderstanding. James, the youngest son, was not entirely an unreasonable rebel. He often showed fatigue and the desire to be loved, to be accepted, but did not know how to untangle the invisible bonds between them. Amid all the disputes and jealousy, the figure of Mrs. Margaret remained quietly like an immobile witness. It was rumored that she understood every contradiction, every calculation, and that she held a secret enough to change the fate of the Greene family. The story of the Greene family was still continuing, day by day, hour by hour, with unpredictable fluctuations, fierce confrontations, and fragile hopes for reconciliation. But one thing was certain. Beneath the glamorous and wealthy surface, there was a family struggling not only for property, but also for the survival of the very relationships they once called family. The relationship between the siblings was no longer the bond of blood, but had become a complex network of hatred, discord, and suspicion. Every smile, every word seemed just a mask, hiding the truly chaotic emotions inside. Edward, Clara, and James, the three children of Mr. Nathaniel and Mrs. Margaret, although sharing the same bloodline, lived in a world where hostility overwhelmed everything else. They were not only siblings, but also potential enemies, standing on battlefields without gunfire, fighting for rights, honor, and recognition that each believed they deserved. Edward, the eldest son with a cold and calculating demeanor, always considered himself the one bearing the family's responsibility. But inside, he carried deep resentment toward Clara and James, those he thought were immature and irresponsible. For Edward, every action of theirs was a threat to the power he wished to hold. Clara, the middle daughter, bore the lingering wounds from days of being belittled and hidden away. She not only resented Edward for his imposition and lack of trust, but also felt looked down upon by James because of his rebellious nature. Clara's silence was not agreement, but a sharp weapon hidden in the dark, making anyone daring to approach cautious. James, the hot-tempered youngest, not only opposed his father, but also resisted Edward and Clara. He saw himself as lonely, isolated, and unrecognized. James's rebellion and dissatisfaction were not only opposition, but also a cry for help inside, a way for him to find a place in the family where he felt abandoned. Tensions among the three siblings increased as each gradually fell deeper into the whirlpool of suspicion and hatred. They no longer listened to each other, but only sought ways to break the other, proving their own superiority. One cold winter night, in the dark living room, the three had a fiery confrontation. Edward accused Clara of hiding secrets about their mother's health, obstructing every effort to unite the family. Clara, unwilling to sit quietly, retorted that Edward only cared about personal interests and was willing to sacrifice anyone to achieve his goals. James bluntly accused both of being hypocrites, only using each other as tools for personal schemes. The quarrel echoed throughout the house, like knives cutting into the already wounded heart of the Greene family. Every word, every glance contained undeniable hostility, as if each was trying to break the last remaining bond. But the deep resentment did not stop at words. It soaked into every action, every decision, making things more complicated than ever. Family meetings became tense battles of wit, every word like a bullet fired at the opponent. Secrets were kept, conspiracies woven in the dark, making the family picture tangled and dangerous. Clara had once discovered some secret documents related to the will and the parents' past, but she did not know whom to share them with, fearing it would create more turmoil. Edward, cautious and prudent by nature, always sought to control information and those around him to maintain his position. James, meanwhile, just wanted to break all barriers, even if it could cause the family to completely collapse. The rift deepened when Mrs. Margaret was bedridden, becoming the center of endless disputes. Each had their own way of showing concern, but no one truly understood the other's true feelings. This created a vicious cycle of loneliness and hostility. Nevertheless, there were still rare moments of sympathy and connection. Brief moments when the three siblings cared for Mrs. Margaret together, overcoming immediate difficulties. But those moments were quickly overshadowed by the darkness of suspicion and resentment. The Greene family, with all its conflicts and secrets, stands at the threshold of collapse or salvation. The relationship between Edward, Clara, and James reflects the consequences of hidden secrets and unspoken words. Can they overcome resentment and discord to find family affection again? Or will old wounds consume them, making the Greene family forever a sad story in the shadows? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain, nothing destroys a family more than hostility among blood relatives, and nothing can heal it without forgiveness and understanding. In the Greene family's ancient mansion, every wall seems soaked with an indescribably gloomy atmosphere, as if the house itself sighs heavily under decades of secrets and conflicts. Every room, every long corridor evokes an extreme tension, making anyone who steps inside feel suffocated to the point of breathlessness. Not just a house, it is a kingdom of conspiracies, jealousy, and unspeakable pain. The invisible pressure from the will left by Mr. Nathaniel traps the members, unable to leave this home full of disputes, and that confinement creates a toxic living environment endured by all. The heavy atmosphere is not only the noisy sounds of quarrels or weary sighs, but also endless silence, sharp looks, and words never spoken. Edward, as the eldest son and expected heir, is increasingly overwhelmed by that tension. The pressure to uphold the family's power and honor makes him cold and distant. Every decision he makes is harshly judged, causing him to become more closed off, cautious, and sometimes suspicious, even of his closest relatives. Clara, the middle daughter, carries deep loneliness within her. The gloom of the house, along with her mother's health condition, feels like a suffocating grip on her soul. She is quiet, reserved, and somewhat distant, but those feelings make her a keen observer, remembering every small detail in family conflicts. However, that silence and distance cause her to be increasingly misunderstood by her siblings, deepening the conflicts. James, the youngest son, is the most strongly affected by the tense environment. His rebellious and impulsive personality is a natural reaction to the suffocation and constraint of the house. Every argument, every clash worsens the already deeply rooted family conflicts. James not only wants freedom, but also wants to break all barriers, even if it means destroying what the family has built. Mrs. Margaret, the frail, bedridden mother, seems also caught in that whirlwind. Although unable to participate in arguments, her presence symbolizes the family's unhealed wounds. Her illness is a constant reminder of the deep hurt and the gradually fracturing relationships. That gloomy and tense atmosphere has created a toxic living environment, causing members to lose calmness and the ability to make wise decisions. Endless arguments, blame, and suspicion delay or cancel every plan or intention. None of them can escape the darkness of the past and the resentment weighing heavily on their souls. The walls in the greenhouse are not only physical barriers, but also invisible walls separating members, preventing them from clearly seeing each other and feeling the empathy and love inherently in their blood. The ghosts of the past constantly haunt them, pushing them into states of extreme mental tension. On many long nights, as the wind howls through old window frames, Mrs. Margaret's breathing machine sounds like the slow heartbeat of time, recalling the resilience and helplessness of the Greene family. These are the loneliest and most sorrowful moments when each person faces their fears and the feeling of being trapped in a vortex of inescapable conflicts. However, in that gloomy darkness, there still exists a faint light, a fragile hope that if they can overcome these challenges, if they can face each other with sincerity and forgiveness, the Greene family can still find peace in the bond they once had. But before that happens, they must go through stormy days, harsh internal and external struggles. Every decision, every word, every action carries the weight of history, wounds, and unfulfilled desires. The greenhouse still stands there, outwardly a magnificent building, but inside it is the center of family tragedies, the stage of untold stories, and a place where gloom and tension never truly end, where every wall, every corner is soaked with untold secrets. A gunshot rings out, tearing through the already tense silence. That gunshot is not only the end of Mr. Chester Greene's life, Nathaniel's only remaining younger brother, but also the beginning of a series of shocking events shaking not only the Greene family, but also the city's elite. It was a bitterly cold late autumn night. All family members gathered in the living room, an unusual meeting called by Nathaniel to discuss the will and important changes in the estate. The atmosphere was suffocating with tension, whispers, suspicious glances, and long-standing envy. But no one expected that night to become a fateful one, changing everyone's lives forever. Mr. Chester, the less-mentioned younger brother but always playing a key role in the family, appeared with a scowl, cold and suspicious eyes. From the beginning, his presence made the atmosphere even more stifling. Chester disagreed with many terms in the will, and he could not hide his anger when seeing the conflicts increasingly falling on his brother Nathaniel. The argument quickly escalated from gentle words to harsh challenges. Sharp looks, ambiguous remarks, and pent-up anger exploded in a moment of loss of control. Before anyone could understand what was happening, a gunshot rang out, deafening, freezing everyone. The light from the hanging chandelier fell, creating a horrific, chaotic scene. People scattered while Mr. Chester collapsed on the floor, blood from the wound spreading quickly, staining the dark floral carpet red. Crying and shouting echoed throughout the house, mixed with the sound of ambulance sirens and the hurried footsteps of those around. Everything happened in a few brief minutes, but left a deep and unforgettable mark. The murder case that took place right inside the Greene family home was not only a personal tragedy, but also the beginning of a series of complex mysteries. Who shot Chester? What was the true purpose of the crime? Was it just an accident or a sophisticated plot orchestrated by people within the house? Those questions were like sharp knives piercing straight into the heart of the Greene family, leaving them no way back. The investigation dragged on, secrets gradually revealed, but at the same time worsening internal conflicts. Edward, Clara, and James each had different attitudes toward this event. Edward saw it as an opportunity to consolidate power. Clara was tormented by guilt and inexplicable doubts, while James was furious, determined to find the truth at any cost. The event also drew the attention of the media and police, making the Greene family the center of endless gossip and speculation. Family meetings were no longer just internal matters, but private trials full of conspiracies and hidden conflicts. The darkness of the Chester Greene case not only covered the house, but also cast a shadow over all hopes for reunion and peace the family once longed for. It was a warning to everyone that in the Greene family, nothing was certain, nothing was safe, and everything could change in an instant. ChatGPT said, the darkness had not yet dissipated in the Greene mansion after the fateful gunshot that night when the phone rang repeatedly in the city police office. A murder case right in the heart of a noble family, a sudden and mysterious death. No one could deny the complexity and shock of the event. That was why Detective Philo Vance, famous for his sharp intellect and ability to see through human psychology, was summoned to handle the case. Philo Vance was not a stranger to the public. He was a gentleman with a classy style, always entering each case with calmness and extraordinary intelligence. But the case at the Greene family was different. Not just a murder, but a labyrinth of secrets, schemes, and tangled plots woven within the tense family relationships. As soon as he stepped into the Greene mansion, Philo Vance immediately sensed a heavy energy enveloping the whole house. Gloom, suspicion, and an almost suffocating atmosphere. The family members all showed signs of tension, even caution and wariness toward the detective's presence. But he was not shaken. On the contrary, those expressions only increased his curiosity. The investigation began with simple but haunting questions. Who had the motive? Who had the opportunity? And most importantly, who wanted Mr. Chester dead? One by one, they were invited for questioning, from the cold Edward, the silent Clara, to the hot-tempered James. Each answer contained part truth and part mystery. Philo Vance relied not only on physical evidence, but also used psychological analysis skills to evaluate each testimony, gesture, and reaction. He quickly realized that this was not a simple murder case, but a complex labyrinth of internal conflicts, long-standing grudges, and secrets buried beneath the facade of a perfect family. One night when everyone in the mansion had fallen asleep, Philo Vance quietly walked around the rooms, observing and thinking. He found small details that many might have overlooked. A crumpled scrap of paper under Mr. Chester's desk, a clock out of place, and strange sounds coming from Mrs. Margaret's room, the mother motionless on her sickbed. These clues gradually connected, revealing the deep hidden corners of the Greene family. Philo Vance understood that to solve the case successfully, he not only had to find the culprit, but also uncover the ultimate secrets each member was trying to hide. The conflicts among Edward, Clara, and James were further explored by the detective. He realized that beyond the outbursts of hatred, there were underground relationships, secret alliances, and even silent threats that only insiders could understand. The investigation also exposed the dark past of the Greene family. Buried events, shocking secrets that, if revealed, would shatter the whole family. And those secrets were the key to unlocking the truth of the murder case. Under Philo Vance's guidance, each layer of secrecy was gradually peeled back, piece by piece, assembling the complete picture of the case. Yet at the same time, dangers and traps increasingly lurked, forcing the detective and the Greene family to face difficult choices and tense, breathtaking situations. Secret meetings, hours-long interrogations, sudden breakthroughs in the investigation, all created a thrilling and dramatic chain of events, making not only the family members, but also outsiders anxiously watch. And as the darkness of the case was slowly illuminated, could Philo Vance find the real murderer? Would the Greene family's long-held secrets be revealed? And would their conflicts be resolved? Or would they become the fire that burns everything down? One thing was certain. Detective Philo Vance's involvement not only marked a crucial turning point in the case, but also the beginning of fierce confrontations between truth and lies, between family bonds and betrayal within the Greene family. The gunshot that shattered the dark night of the Greene mansion was like a deep cut into the family's heart, turning everything chaotic and mysterious. And then when Detective Philo Vance began his investigation, a wave of suspicion endlessly stirred in the air, turning each family member into a potential suspect, each carrying a secret, a motive, and an unpredictable capacity for murder. Edward, the eldest son with a calm exterior, hid ambitions full of power plays. The pressure to inherit his father's enormous estate weighed invisibly on his shoulders. Everyone knew he had clashed violently many times with Mr. Chester over the division of assets and control of the family company. There were times Edward threatened to do whatever it took to seize full power, even eliminating those who stood in his way. Clara, the middle daughter, seemed the model of calmness and understanding, but in the shadows, she held deep secrets. Her silence and distant attitude made everyone suspicious. Rumor had it Clara had discovered vast sums of money transferred out without the family's knowledge and threatened to expose it, if not respected. This put her in a position that she could not avoid suspicion. James, the youngest son, was known for his impulsive and rebellious nature. He hated the rules Nathaniel had set, especially the will that bound the members to live together for at least 15 years. James had threatened many times to run away, leaving everything behind to gain freedom. But this frustration also made him a dangerous suspect, for who knew what he might do in a moment of rage. Mrs. Margaret, the frail, bedridden mother, although unable to directly participate in the conflicts, was at the center of many disputes. There were rumors about her complicated relationship with Mr. Chester and also about financial secrets she held. Everyone wondered whether she was somehow involved in the case, even if only indirectly. The longtime servants who had witnessed all the events in the house were not free from suspicion either. Anyone could be a link in this complex chain of events. Small conflicts inflated into major motives, accidental gestures turning into important evidence. Philo Vance realized that to find the culprit, he had to penetrate each person's facade, uncovering fears, inner struggles, and conspiracies hidden deep within their hearts. Every character, every testimony, every action could be a clue or a trap, requiring him to be more cautious than ever. The atmosphere in the Greene mansion grew increasingly tense. People became more wary of each other, their eyes no longer warm but filled with suspicion and fear. Frequent tense confrontations took place. Verbal exchanges escalated into heated arguments, creating a suffocating and unbearable atmosphere. The entire family was drawn into a whirlpool of suspicion and fear, causing them to distrust one another. Each kept a secret, a truth that, if revealed, could shatter the entire current picture. They lived in a house that was no longer a home, but a relentless battlefield where every action could lead to danger. Philo Vance's investigation continued, with careful steps as he gradually peeled away the layers of masks and deception to reveal the truth behind. But that truth was far from simple. It was a tangled story of family ties, greed, betrayal, and relentless schemes. The case at the Greene family was not merely a simple murder, but a mirror reflecting the deepest darkness in human souls, also proving that even the most seemingly perfect families could harbor terrifying dark secrets. Under the light of the slowly unfolding truth, Philo Vance and the Greene family faced painful decisions and unavoidable consequences. Who would be the murderer? Who would take responsibility for Mr. Chester's death? And could this family overcome the darkness to find peace again? Everything awaited answers inside the Greene family's mansion, full of shadows and suspicion. The Greene mansion was still bathed in dim light when Detective Philo Vance entered the crime scene, where Chester Greene lay collapsed on the floor, bright red blood scattered like fragments of a truth yet to be revealed. The large living room, once witness to tense family meetings, had now become the setting of a dark mystery filled with traces needing meticulous examination. Philo Vance did not rush. He moved slowly, carefully observing every detail, from bullet holes on the wall, footprints on the dark floral carpet, to the blood stains on the ancient wooden floor. Every smallest detail could be the key to unlocking the door to the truth, and he understood that even a tiny mistake could lead to a serious error. The bullet hole on the wall, only a few meters from the victim's fall position, showed the killer must have stood very close. The trajectory and angle of the bullet's impact on Chester's body not only revealed the shooter's position, but also reflected the mood and haste in that act. Philo Vance studied the scattered bullet fragments intently, as if reading a map full of secret codes. The footprints on the carpet, isolated and irregular, raised many questions. Were those the footprints of the murderer? Or of a witness? Why did those footprints appear there, and did someone deliberately leave signs to mislead the investigation? Besides that, small items like a forgotten watch, a crumpled piece of paper under the desk, or a fallen button were carefully noted by Philo Vance. Each item, however small, carried its own story, a clue not to be overlooked. He also paid attention to the signs on the victim's body, not only the fatal bullet wound, but also bruises and marks from a brief struggle before death. Analyzing them, Philo Vance began to visualize the chaotic scene of that fateful night. Not stopping at physical evidence, he closely observed the surrounding space, the position of disturbed furniture, paintings on the walls, the light and shadows in the room. All contributed to painting a vivid picture of the case, helping him search for abnormalities and contradictions in the family members' statements. Especially, Philo Vance spent much time in Mrs. Margaret's room, where strange sounds and inexplicable signs always appeared. He carefully inspected every smallest detail, from the sickbed, medical items, to hidden notes. He believed that this place might hold the key to unlocking the mystery of the case. Every step the detective took was like a leap deeper into a maze of secrets, and the further he went, the more he sensed the complexity and danger lurking within. Footprints, bullet marks, evidence, all like links in a chain of a story full of schemes and calculations. The atmosphere in the mansion grew increasingly stifling due to the presence of someone searching for the truth bit by bit. His sharp eyes made it impossible for anyone to hide or escape. Lies and fabrications began to be unraveled, long-held secrets gradually revealed under the light of truth. Philo Vance knew that to solve the case successfully, he had to not only see what was visible, but also understand what lay beneath: the motives, psychology, and relationships among the members. This case was not simply a spontaneous act, but the result of prolonged conflicts and scheming. With each clue gathered, he began to paint a more detailed picture of Mr. Matthias Chester's final days, tangled relationships, and suppressed anger. Every trace, every detail was like a puzzle piece in the complex intellectual game that Mr. Nathaniel had left for the Greene family. Amid the size of the old mansion, the light of truth was gradually flickering in the keen eyes of Philo Vance. But he also knew the path ahead was fraught with traps and dangers, and any mistake could lead the case into a dead end, or worse, was allow the culprit to escape punishment. In the dim light of the Greene mansion, Detective Philo Vance sat beside the desk covered with evidence collected from the crime scene. His gaze silently scrutinized each piece, from the bullet hole in the wall to the scattered footprints on the floral carpet, the crumpled papers, and small items seemingly unrelated but hiding unexpected secrets. This was not merely data collection, but a journey through a complex labyrinth of truth and deception. First, Philo stopped before the bullet mark. The bullet was fired from a very close angle, almost at chest level of Mr. Chester Greene, indicating the assassin must have stood very near the victim, but strangely, there was no sign of a violent struggle nearby. The carpet was undisturbed. The chair remained in place. This made Philo suspect that this was not a spontaneous murder, but one carefully prepared. The footprints on the carpet, a messy trail without order distributed from the door to the victim's position, were the next important clue. Philo noticed some smaller footprints clearly belonging to a woman, and some larger, heavier ones possibly of a man. Their position and directions told a hidden story, a sudden encounter or a brief chase in the room. Philo skillfully compared the footprints with the height and gait of the family members. Edward, with his towering height, could hardly match the smaller prints. Clara, with her slender figure, matched the smaller footprints better. James, with his strong physique and heavy step, could be related to the larger footprints. The analysis of blood stains on the floor was equally important. The blood spread in a straight line, suggesting the victim might have tried to move before collapsing. But strangely, there was no clear sign of a strong collision or broken objects, indicating Mr. Chester might have been shot while off guard. A small item, a watch left on the floor with a shattered glass, was considered by Philo as a key piece of evidence. The watch did not belong to Mr. Chester, but was identified as belonging to another family member, and the time of damage matched the time of the incident. Was this evidence accidentally left during the chaos or a deliberate sign? A crumpled paper found in the corner of the room bore scribbled words, possibly a threat or warning. Philo carefully analyzed the handwriting and content, quickly detecting a match with an old letter from previous years, a letter once kept secret in the family archives. All those small details, when pieced together, formed a complex picture of a case that was not simple. The physical evidence not only tightly linked together, but also highlighted contradictions in the testimonies of the members. Someone was deliberately hiding the truth, or at least making the case ambiguous to avoid responsibility. Philo Vance, with his instincts and rich experience, realized the culprit must be someone deeply familiar with the Greene family, someone who knew every habit, every weakness, and could exploit situations to create a perfect cover for the crime. Each tiny piece of evidence was a clue bringing him closer to the perpetrator, but at the same time opened a series of new questions. Who intentionally misled the investigation? Who was playing this dangerous game, and why? The atmosphere in the mansion grew increasingly suffocating as rumors, suspicion, and tension escalated. The family members, whether willing or not, became the sharp focus of Philo Vance's piercing investigation. Analyzing the suspicious evidence not only helped Philo get closer to the truth, but also uncovered the false masks of the Greene family, a tangled family full of conflicts yet filled with dark secrets never revealed. In the long, gloomy night at the mansion, the light of truth flickered, and Philo Vance knew he was only a few steps away from the final answer. But was he ready to face the consequences that the truth would bring? The ticking of the antique clock echoed in the cold room of the Greene mansion, where the dim yellow light reflected on dusty walls and silent shadows sat waiting. Detective Philo Vance stood in the center of the room, his sharp eyes like a cold blade, ready to enter the whirlpool of testimonies, where truth and lies intertwined, and every word could be an arrow hitting or misleading. First, he called Edward, the eldest son, with a calm appearance, but eyes betraying tension. Edward entered the interrogation room confidently, but Philo knew beneath that facade was a mind full of schemes and fear of being exposed. "Where were you on the night of the incident?" Philo asked directly. Edward did not hesitate, answering that he was in the study all night, busy reviewing important company documents. But when Philo asked why no one saw him leave the room during that time, Edward only responded with a forced smile. Next was Clara, the quiet daughter who always kept distance from everyone. She entered the room calmly, but her eyes showed vigilance. Her testimony about the fateful night was vague. She said she was in her room, reading, and did not hear any strange noises. However, Philo noticed small signs in her speech, avoiding eye contact, constantly turning, as if trying to escape pressure. James, the youngest son with a fiery temper, was called last. He entered the interrogation room with burning eyes, hurried voice, and undeniable anger. James frankly declared he was in the kitchen preparing drinks for the family meeting. But when Philo asked about his relationship with Mr. Chester, his eyes revealed deep resentment. "Are you dissatisfied with how he treated the family?" Philo gently asked. James did not answer directly, only said, "Everyone in this family has secrets. Everyone has their own reasons to be angry." The interrogation did not stop with the three siblings. Mrs. Margaret, though weak and bedridden, was also listened to by Philo through the caretaker's accounts. Small stories, her unexpected reactions when mentioning Mr. Chester or the will, were carefully noted. Even the longtime servants, who silently observed every detail in the house, were summoned. Their testimonies brought different perspectives, trivial events that family members overlooked or deliberately forgot. Philo Vance quickly noticed contradictions in the testimonies. Edward claimed he never left the study, but a servant revealed seeing him in the hallway at midnight. Clara said she heard no noises, but some witnesses heard arguing from the living room at the same time. James said he was in the kitchen, but no one could confirm it. These details made Philo raise a series of tough questions. Who was telling the truth? Who was lying? What was the purpose behind the dishonest statements? Was someone deliberately hiding the truth to evade responsibility? Every question, every answer was meticulously recorded by Philo. He knew that to solve the case, it was not only necessary to look at physical evidence, but also to extract the truth from the psychology and words of those involved. A notable point was the tense attitude of the members whenever asked about their relationship with Mr. Chester. They not only hid things, but showed deep disagreements, creating a suffocating and suspicious atmosphere. Philo began connecting the contradictions and suspicious points, imagining the complex picture of the Greene family, a divided family full of plots and betrayals. Everyone had motives and opportunities, but who was the mastermind behind the shocking murder? The interrogation lasted long, not only a battle of wits between the detective and the family members, but also an internal struggle within each person, between truth and lies, between kinship and betrayal. As night fell, the Greene mansion remained silent, but in the interrogation room, Philo Vance's eyes shone with determination. He knew the truth was slowly emerging, yet he also knew the road ahead remained full of obstacles and dangers. The dense darkness covered every hidden corner of the Greene mansion, where each wall seemed to swallow the light and exhale the cold breaths of the past. Even as the investigation continued actively under Detective Philo Vance's direction, something else, invisible yet causing the entire family to tremble, began to awaken in that gloomy space. Strange, mysterious sounds. On the first night after the case, when everyone had retreated to their rooms, the house suddenly echoed with inexplicable noises. Heavy footsteps, uneven but clearly resonating throughout the long corridor, as if someone was quietly passing behind every closed door. Not just once, but many times, like an obsessive chorus repeating endlessly. Clara, who had lived in silence and solitude, felt for the first time an inexplicable unease. She sat frozen in her room, listening to the spreading sounds, each step striking the deepest fears in her heart. She intended to stand, but her legs seemed frozen, unable to move. In the room next door, James was startled awake by the sound of the living room door opening and closing repeatedly, accompanied by strange, rattling noises. He hurriedly stood up, gripping an old flashlight tightly, footsteps pounding down the hall. But when he arrived, there was no sign of anyone, only a terrifying silence, as if lasting 1,000 years. Edward, cold and rational by nature, initially tried to explain the phenomena as wind or the old noises of the house. But as the sounds persisted every night, causing sleeplessness and tension and even fleeting shadows caught from the corner of his eye, he began to suspect that something abnormal was happening. Mrs. Margaret, bedridden for 10 years, also seemed increasingly unsettled as the sounds grew clearer and more frequent. Her occasional glances toward the door with confused eyes made her caretaker shudder. She whispered unclear words, as if trying to convey something no one could understand. Detective Philo Vance, a man who did not believe in the supernatural, could not ignore these strange sounds. He decided to spend many sleepless nights observing and surveying the entire Greene mansion. With keen ears and a sharp mind, he discovered that the sounds were not random noises. The footsteps were not those of any family member or staff. They appeared at times when no one was moving in the house, even though Mr. Nathaniel had long since passed away. The door noises followed no natural pattern, making anyone shiver. Philo began to suspect these sounds might be signs of a warning or a message sent through time. He delved into the house's history and found that the Greene mansion had been the scene of many tragic and mysterious events, and invisible forces might still be holding the family captive. The atmosphere in the house grew increasingly suffocating and haunted. The family members, already tense and suspicious of each other, now had to face a shared fear of these unexplainable phenomena. Each passing night was a mental battle, as everyone had to fight not only themselves, but also the invisible ghosts of the past. The appearance of these strange sounds not only added pressure to the investigation, but also raised a big question. Could there be something within the greenhouse waiting to be revealed? A secret that could only be told through the noises of the darkness? The long, eerie nights plunged the Greene family into extreme tension. Suspicion, confusion, and fear easily caused them to lose control, leading to many new arguments and conflicts, deepening the already painful psychological wounds. Philo Vance, though a rational and practical man, could not help but feel uneasy as those sounds continuously echoed like an unavoidable reminder of a mystery waiting to be solved. And amid all that gloom and mystery, the story of the Greene family continued. A story full of strange noises, ghosts in the night, and people struggling to find the truth before it was too late. On the cold, long nights covering the Greene mansion, the already stifling atmosphere grew even more oppressive as mysterious sounds repeatedly echoed like an obsessive, unending chorus. Uneven footsteps, quiet door creaks traveling through the hallways, along with unexplainable noises, drove the family members into a state of extreme bewilderment. Clara was the most affected. She had always lived in her own world full of secrets, now confronted by these strange sounds that made her even more isolated. Night after night, Clara listened to every sound, her heart pounding, eyes full of fear, but hiding it so no one would notice. Many times she found herself trembling when seeing vague shadows in the dark corners, as if someone was watching her. That unease gradually eroded her mind, making her withdraw further from everyone. Edward, the eldest son, tough and cold by nature, could not avoid being crushed by pressure. The noises not only disrupted his sleep, but also pushed him into a state of tension, his nerves stretched like a tight string. Each time footsteps echoed, he felt as if someone was challenging his authority and control. Rising suspicion and anxiety made him increasingly closed off, communicating less and sometimes showing uncontrollable behavior, which worsened conflicts with relatives. James, rebellious and unpredictable, was disturbed by the noises to the point of intolerance. He began suspecting family members, thinking someone deliberately made the sounds to demoralize him or to frame him. Anger and confusion made him aggressive, almost sparking serious conflicts with Edward and Clara over baseless suspicions. Heated arguments followed one after another, making the household atmosphere seem ready to explode. Mrs. Margaret, though bedridden, was not spared from the influence of these gloomy sounds. She occasionally woke up, eyes wide open, confused, and panicked. Caregivers recounted that she sometimes cried out as if warning something or trying to communicate with an invisible force in the house. Her weakness made the mansion's atmosphere heavier, like a premonition of worse things to come. The strange noises not only increased confusion, but also deepened suspicion within the family. Members began looking at each other with wary, scrutinizing eyes, every word carefully weighed to avoid misunderstandings or traps. Each time the sounds appeared, they tended to blame one another, making the already piled-up conflicts even more severe. The mansion's atmosphere became suffocating. Many could not bear it and had to leave their rooms at night to search for the cause or simply to dispel their fears. But each time, they discovered other unusual signs: a door slightly ajar, a chair pushed askew, strange footprints appearing in areas no one should have passed through. The unease not only exhausted the members physically, but also became a heavy mental burden, causing family decisions to become unwise and prone to mistakes. They started avoiding each other, keeping distance, even refusing to cooperate in internal investigations, making family life increasingly chaotic. Philo Vance, witnessing the Greene family's mental decline, understood that to solve the case, he not only had to find the culprit, but also help them overcome this psychological darkness. He knew that if the fear and suspicion were not addressed, the case would remain a maze with no escape. Life in the Greene mansion is no longer a home, but a dark veil hanging over every heart, making each passing day a battle with oneself and the dearest loved ones. A place once seen as a symbol of power and stability has now become a stronghold of suspicion, fear, and dark mysteries. After the horrific murder of Mr. Chester, the already suffocating atmosphere in the house is further weighed down by strange, eerie noises, bringing confusion, tension, and above all, unprecedented distrust among everyone. Every echoing footstep in the long corridor or sudden opening and closing of doors is not just a physical sound, but seems to be a reflection of the anxieties within each person's mind. No one can explain these sounds, drawing every family member into a spiral of mutual suspicion, complicating the already gloomy atmosphere surrounding the murder case. Edward, the eldest son, originally cold and cautious, has become even more distant. His sharp gaze no longer targets only external rivals, but turns inward to his own siblings. Each time a strange noise occurs, Edward looks directly at Clara or James with a scrutinizing eye, as if trying to catch signs of betrayal or a secret plot. Clara, once discreet and reserved, cannot escape feelings of unease. She had hoped the case would help the family find the truth, but now the suspicions and ghostly noises push her to extreme stress. Whenever she encounters Edward or James, their eyes no longer show love but a challenge, a silent question everyone wants an answer to. James, the youngest son with a rebellious nature, has become the source of many rumors and suspicions. He has openly opposed household rules many times, and now even the smallest action is closely watched. When noises arise, many immediately suspect him behind schemes to sabotage or escalate tensions. This pressure makes James increasingly aggressive, ready to confront anyone who dares doubt him. Suspicion extends not only among siblings, but also to servants and medical staff. Gossip quickly turns into malicious rumors, making every step they take in the mansion observed and judged. Anyone could be an accomplice or the hidden culprit, intensifying the stifling atmosphere in the house. Mrs. Margaret, bedridden, has also become the center of many suspicions. Her occasional unclear whispers cause worry and questions among family members. Does she know something they don't? Some believe she might be the one sending the noises as warnings, while others suspect she is being manipulated by someone. Detective Philo Vance realizes that suspicion and fear have become the most dangerous weapons in this house. Every word, every glance could be a trap, a scheme hidden beneath a false mask. He understands that to solve the case, he must not only uncover the truth behind Mr. Chester's death, but also help the Greene family overcome the ever-thickening veil of distrust. Small arguments suddenly turn into fierce quarrels, irreconcilable misunderstandings create deep cracks in already broken relationships. Each family member's gaze is now a challenge, a vigilance that cannot be hidden. The atmosphere in the Greene mansion, once a place witnessing the glorious stories of a wealthy family, now resembles a tense arena where every step and every word can trigger a chain reaction, dragging them deeper into the abyss of suspicion and lost trust. Strange noises, suspicious glances, and secret rumors make the portrait of the case more complex than ever. And when secrets are revealed, each person must face a choice: hold on to suspicion and hatred or find a path to truth and reconciliation. The Greene family stands at a crossroads of fate, facing challenges not only of individual survival, but also the existence of an entire bloodline, a family, though full of secrets and pain. Darkness covered every corner of the Greene mansion, where every sound and glance hid deep secrets and unresolved conflicts. After strange footsteps and tense confrontations among family members, Detective Philo Vance increasingly felt that Mr. Chester's murder was not simply a homicide. It was a facade hiding a series of personal secrets and tangled conflicts, intertwined like a dense spiderweb within the Greene family. Philo began his decoding journey by digging into the past of each person, each event they deliberately concealed. Edward, the eldest son with a cold exterior, harbored terrible pressures. Besides bearing the responsibility of inheriting the estate, he carried resentment from feeling unfairly treated by his father. The prolonged conflicts led him to contemplate stripping power from Mr. Chester, the younger brother he considered a hidden enemy. Clara, with a quiet appearance, held deeper sorrows than anyone else. Philo discovered she had secretly gathered evidence of shady financial transactions Mr. Chester conducted, involving money withdrawn from the family company. Clara kept these documents as a secret card, ready to use when necessary to protect herself and the portion of the estate she deemed rightful. James, the rebellious youngest child, conflicted not only with his father but also angrily with both siblings. He had fierce arguments about rights and treatment within the family, but deep inside, James longed to be accepted and recognized, something he always felt was lacking. His use of force or rebellion was the only way he knew to attract attention and seek acknowledgement from the family. The secrets extended beyond the main family members. Philo gradually uncovered complex relationships with the servants, who had witnessed many things they should not have known. One servant revealed that Mrs. Margaret, the frail mother, had secret meetings with Mr. Chester, including heated disputes about division of property and power. These details shed light on the causes of many hidden conflicts. The room where Mrs. Margaret lay bedridden also contained strange signs. Some medical documents were hidden, hastily written notes on paper, and strange sounds that the detective heard during sleepless nights. Philo began to suspect that Mrs. Margaret was not only a witness, but might also be a key factor in the story. Each secret revealed, each conflict exposed, contributed to creating a multidimensional portrait of the Greene family, a wealthy but deeply fractured family, where affection and hatred intertwined inseparably. Past wounds, power schemes, and personal selfishness formed a complex, hard-to-decipher network. Philo Vance, with calmness and sharp intellect, gradually peeled away layers of masks of pretense and deceit. He was not only searching for the culprit, but also sought to understand the nature of people in a family torn apart by secrets and suspicion. The deeper he went, the more he realized this case was not merely the crime of an individual, but the result of emotional imprisonment, long-standing discord, and secrets kept in the dark. The Greene family stood at the threshold of truth and unavoidable change. Could they overcome deep wounds and regain connection, or would they let conflicts and secrets bury their future forever? In the thick darkness of the mansion, the light of truth was gradually being lit, guiding a journey not only to find the murderer, but also a battle between forgiveness and hatred, between kinship and betrayal. Darkness had not yet lifted from the Greene mansion, as Detective Philo Vance slowly sat before a desk cluttered with files, photos, and meticulous notes. That night, the desk lamp flickered, illuminating his cold, thoughtful face. The only person who could see through all the masks of deceit and the dark secrets piling up in this family. After weeks of relentless investigation, Philo finally touched the faint threads connecting the clues, revealing the main suspects, those directly involved in the horrific murder of Mr. Chester Greene. First is Edward, the eldest son with cold eyes and a decisive personality. The intense conflicts between him and Mr. Chester over the division of family assets were not just empty words. A series of evidence shows Edward had secret meetings and tense phone calls right before the night of the murder. Some witnesses heard heated arguments between Edward and Chester a few days before the incident. Additionally, a large footprint found at the scene matched Edward's foot size, a detail Mr. Philo could not overlook. Clara, the seemingly fragile and quiet middle daughter, startled Detective Philo when he discovered many contradictions in her testimony. Some secret documents in Clara's possession, including evidence of money withdrawn from the family company without anyone knowing, placed her in a position with potential motive. Furthermore, smaller footprints at the scene matched Clara's build. Philo suspected she knew more than she said, and could be the mastermind behind the dark curtain. James, the rebellious youngest son with an impulsive nature, could not avoid suspicion. He had often loudly opposed his father's rules and expressed deep dissatisfaction with living under the greenhouse's will. Analysis of James's text messages on the night of the murder showed he sent many angry and threatening messages to some family members. Moreover, another large, heavy footprint distinct from Edward's might belong to him. Anger and feelings of betrayal made James undeniable suspect. Mrs. Margaret, the bedridden mother who seemed the most powerless in the story, was also brought under Detective Philo's scrutiny. Vague testimonies about secret conversations between her and Mr. Chester, along with hidden medical documents, led Philo to question her true role in the case. Could she know more or even be indirectly involved? In addition, longtime servants and staff in the mansion were not free from suspicion. Contradictory testimonies and mysterious actions put them on the list of those who might know or be involved in the case. Discreet surveillance during the investigation revealed many unusual details, adding another layer of mystery to the case. Philo Vance did not rush to conclusions, but based on a tight combination of physical evidence and testimonies, he concluded that the culprit very likely lay among these people, or there was complex collusion between individuals. Each suspect had motive, opportunity, and traces to become the focus of the investigation. The Greene family picture appeared clearer than ever. A fractured family where power, ambition, and hatred formed a dangerous mixture that only a small spark could ignite everything. The emergence of these main suspects not only opened an important turning point in the case, but also stirred new conflicts and suspicions within the family. Their gazes at each other now held challenges, caution, and secrets yet to be revealed. Each stood on a fragile line between truth and lies, between kinship and betrayal. Philo Vance knew that to find the real culprit, he had to dig deeper into each person's psychology and motives, uncover hidden secrets and the sophisticated schemes behind seemingly simple words and actions. In the gloomy Greene mansion, the mental battle between the detective and the main suspects was tense to the point of suffocation, and every step could decide the fate of the case, and of a family standing on the edge of collapse. In the cold Greene mansion, where every footstep still echoed secrets yet to be revealed, the story of Mr. Chester Greene's murder became increasingly darkened by hidden motives. Those motives, deep and dangerous, were nothing but the fight for inheritance of vast assets, the core that caused piling conflicts and erupted extreme hatred within the family. Mr. Nathaniel Greene, the powerful deceased father, left a will with a harsh and special condition. All family members must live under one roof for at least 15 years before receiving the inheritance. This not only trapped them in a suffocating space, but also ignited dark intentions and schemes to seize power and wealth. Edward, the cold and ambitious eldest son, was known as the one with the strongest motive. The expectation to inherit the estate had become an invisible burden weighing heavily on his shoulders. With the attitude of the sole heir projecting authority, Edward did not hesitate to use any means, from manipulating other family members to secretive plans, to eliminate those who stood in his way. He understood that a small mistake could cost him everything. Clara, the middle daughter, though outwardly quiet, harbored no less determination. She held financial secrets, evidence of secret transactions carried out by Mr. Chester and even their father to enrich themselves. Clara understood that if she did not firmly hold on to her interests, she would become the loser in this battle. She quietly built alliances and sought to grasp every movement in the family, using any tactics to protect her position. James, the hot-tempered and rebellious youngest son, was an unpredictable factor. He admitted feeling frustrated living under the harsh rules of the will and had repeatedly declared he would leave, even threatening to do anything to break the rules. James carried resentment about injustice and unfairness within the family, which made him easily provoked and also a dangerous adversary. Not only the three children, but Mrs. Margaret, the frail mother, was also an important figure in this power struggle. Although bedridden, she still held important documents and had significant influence over the final decision of the will. Secret conversations between her and Mr. Chester had been overheard, full of hints about undisclosed clauses, raising suspicions about her interference in the case. The pressure from immense interests combined with the harshness of the will created a tense living environment, where everyone not only fought externally, but also struggled within their minds, facing jealousy, greed, and fears of being eliminated. Detective Philo Vance, during the investigation, realized that the motive of inheritance was the key to understanding the deeper cause of the murder. He uncovered layer by layer of secrets, dialogues, and hidden messages, witnessing conspiracies woven with meticulous and frightening caution. The struggle for the estate was not just about money, but a battle of honor, power, and survival within the Greene family. This transformed every member into a potential suspect with complex and multidimensional motives. The family picture was no longer one of unity, but a sharp battlefield where anyone could be an enemy and betrayal could happen at any moment. Mr. Chester Greene's murder case was not simply a killing, but a dark story of greed, power, and family secrets hidden beneath a perfect mask. And in that darkness, Detective Philo Vance knew he had to be more cautious than ever, for any step could let the truth slip away or make him a target of those who did not want the truth revealed. ChatGPT said, "The dim yellow light in the Greene Mansion's interrogation room seemed to illuminate every dark secret, every deep shadow no one dared touch." Detective Philo Vance, with sharp eyes and a clear mind, sat before a desk piled with physical evidence. But something was off. Not entirely as it appeared. After days of review and analysis, Philo began to realize a chilling truth. Some key evidence at the crime scene had been tampered with, even skillfully forged to mislead the investigation. This forced him to be more careful in every step and opened a new layer of mystery full of tricks and schemes. The watch, a small piece of evidence seemingly harmless but considered crucial for determining the time of the crime, had been disassembled and improperly reassembled. Philo noticed scratches on the glass face not caused by random impact, but signs of intentional damage to hide something. The time on the watch also did not match the family members' statements. The footprints on the floral carpet, once seen as key to identifying the perpetrator, showed inconsistencies, as if they had been pressed over or altered with a strange material. Philo suspected someone deliberately created fake traces to direct suspicion to another person or to conceal the presence of a third party in the case. The bloodstains on the floor also showed abnormalities. Some blood spots had been unevenly wiped, suggesting that someone deliberately tried to erase important traces. Small droplets of blood remained in unusual places, as if intentionally left as false clues. Chemical analysis revealed the presence of a special cleaning solution, one not normally found in the family's daily life. In addition, a crumpled piece of paper containing threatening words found at the scene turned out to be a reprinted copy of an old document. The person who printed it had certainly used technology to forge it, creating the impression that someone had been threatened before the crime occurred, when in fact, this never happened. Philo Vance, with his extensive experience and sharp insight, realized that this case was not simply a murder, but a complex intellectual game, where the perpetrator not only committed murder, but also deliberately staged a false story to deceive both the police and the Greene family. The interference and forgery of evidence further increased suspicion among family members, making the already tense atmosphere even more suffocating. Who had the capability and motive to orchestrate such an intricate plan? Who was deliberately steering the investigation in the wrong direction? Philo understood that to uncover the truth, he had to break through layers of deception and delve deeply into the psychology and relationships among the characters. He began focusing on exploiting the smallest contradictions in testimonies and details that suspects might inadvertently reveal. During this process, he discovered that some members of the Greene family were not entirely honest in their words and actions. These inconsistencies gradually revealed a picture of a long-planned conspiracy aimed at eliminating Mr. Chester and illegitimately seizing the inheritance. The investigation now resembled a dangerous chess game where each move Philo Vance made had to be carefully considered, because any mistake could let the culprit escape punishment and leave the Greene family trapped in a cycle of suspicion and destruction. Each clue and forged piece of evidence uncovered was an important step forward, but also a warning that many things remained hidden, and that the truth might be more horrific than anyone had imagined. In the thick darkness of the greenhouse, the truth began to surface, but that was also when everything became most complicated and dangerous. Philo Vance knew he was walking a thin line between light and darkness, between justice and conspiracy, where one wrong step could turn everything into eternal darkness. Within the gloomy space of the Greene mansion, where every hidden corner held deadly secrets, Detective Philo Vance stepped into a new, perilous, and horrifying dimension: suspicion of poisoning. The murder of Mr. A. Chester was no longer just a gunshot echoing in the night. Now a darker veil, full of schemes and intrigues, began to fall, raising deep suspicions and pushing the investigation into a dead end. After discovering many unusual signs at the scene, from strange bloodstains to forged evidence, Philo Vance noticed there were elements that could not be explained by ordinary methods. Some medical staff and house helpers began showing strange symptoms: fatigue, dizziness, and some even fainted without clear reasons. These signs made him unable to ignore the possibility that a type of poison had been used as a secret weapon in this cold-blooded inheritance war. Philo quickly ordered thorough testing of blood and urine samples from the household members, as well as examinations of personal items and daily utensils. The analysis results showed the presence of a rare poison, a compound capable of inducing anesthesia, disturbing the nervous system, and potentially causing death if administered in high doses. Suspicion grew clearer when Philo discovered a small vial of medicine carefully hidden in Clara's bedroom. Although Clara denied any involvement, the vial contained a poison matching the results of the tests. This incident further intensified the conflicts and distrust within the family, making the already tense atmosphere suffocating. Edward could not escape suspicion either. His secret calls and shady meetings with several doctors and chemists in the city raised questions about whether he was behind using poison as a means to kill. Philo suspected that Edward might have meticulously planned to use poison to weaken Mr. Chester, or even create fake heart attacks to cover up the real crime. James, with his rebellious and frustrated nature, was also under close scrutiny. There was information suggesting he had purchased poison through an acquaintance in the underworld. Although there was no concrete evidence, James's unstable mindset and reckless actions made Philo unable to rule out the possibility that he used poison as a tool to threaten or take revenge on other family members. During the tense investigation, Mrs. Margaret also became a suspect. Her irregular health symptoms, combined with chemical traces in the test samples, raised questions about whether she had been poisoned or even used poison herself for self-defense or personal gain. The presence of poison as a silent weapon heightened the chaos and turmoil within the Greene family. Old conflicts, already deep, now sharpened more than ever, as each member questioned the safety of themselves and their loved ones. Detective Philo Vance, with persistence and sharp insight, began focusing on tracing the poison's origin analyzing relationships and motives to identify the perpetrator. The investigation turned into an intense intellectual battle between him and the culprit, someone using dark schemes to cover every trace. Every clue, every secret revealed in the shadows exposed sinister schemes and ruthless plans behind the murder. But the sophistication of poison use made the truth elusive, where a single misstep could lose justice. The Greene family stood on the brink of total collapse, as it was not just a battle over assets, but a life or death struggle against invisible forces trapping them within their own home. Darkness shrouded the Greene mansion not only because of night, but also due to thick fogs of deceit and betrayal. After many days wrestling with clues and traces, Detective Philo Vance increasingly felt an undeniable fact. He was trapped in a risky game where the Greene family members were not just witnesses, but cunning masterminds skilled at hiding the truth and misleading down to the smallest detail. From the early days of the investigation, Philo had suspected the strange behaviors of those in the house. It seemed every action, every word was carefully weighed to avoid touching deep secrets. But these sophisticated efforts only made the house more mysterious and chaotic than ever. The watch, an important piece of evidence, suddenly vanished without a trace, forcing Philo to spend hours searching every corner of the mansion. But the truth later revealed was a diversion plot. The watch had been dismantled and hidden to distort the timeline of the murder. Not only that, financial documents and internal accusation letters, potentially revealing motives and the culprit's identity, were tampered with and erased. Some papers were replaced by forged copies and important notes rewritten in different handwriting to create misunderstandings. Even some servants were targeted as links in this intricate plan. Some were bribed, others threatened into silence or pretending ignorance. Their appearances in sensitive areas always showed unusual signs, seemingly deliberately causing confusion for the investigation. Contradictory testimonies and stories constructed like a perfect but full of holes and illogical script forced Philo to apply all his subtlety and acuity to analyze. He clearly saw that the Greene family members were playing a high-level intellectual game, deliberately creating misleading scenarios to conceal the truth. Once, during an interrogation when Edward insisted he did not leave the study, several staff members reported seeing his figure in the hallway at the suspicious time. Clara recounted entirely different stories about what she experienced on the night of the murder, but physical evidence did not support that. James repeatedly changed his testimony, raising doubts about his honesty. Philo Vance knew that in this game, the winner was not necessarily the one who acted first, but the one who controlled information and manipulated the puppets around him. He began digging into hidden relationships, rumors, and psychological tricks to find the person behind these sophisticated cover-ups. These deceptive actions not only wasted precious investigation time, but also deepened the mistrust among family members. The division grew more profound, as anyone could become a suspect or a traitor in another's eyes. The atmosphere in the Greene mansion became more suffocating than ever, a place with no room for truth or trust. Every step and every word had to be carefully considered to avoid exposure. As details were gradually revealed, a picture of betrayal, greed, and dangerous schemes emerged clearly. Philo Vance understood that to solve the case, he not only needed to find the culprit, but also had to win the intellectual game the suspects had perfectly staged. Each fake piece of evidence exposed, each testimony revealing falsehood, was a step closer to the truth, but also a great challenge for him and the Greene family. And in the darkness of lies and secrets, only sharp intellect and perseverance could guide Philo Vance to the light of justice and truth before everything plunged into eternal darkness. Darkness still enveloped the Greene mansion, where every echoing footstep sounded like the reverberation of a painful past. As Detective Philo Vance faced a new mysterious turning point in the investigation of Mr. Chester Greene's murder. During the autopsy, the forensic doctor discovered strange signs on the victim's body and in clues surrounding the murderer, a sign that the killer might be psychologically obsessed, opening a new direction full of unrevealed matters. Mr. Chester's body was thoroughly examined in the cold autopsy room. Not only was there a fatal bullet wound in the chest, but other wounds told a different story. signs of an unequal but intense struggle. Scratches on the hands and neck proved the victim tried to resist, but also indicated the killer was not merely a cold-blooded murderer, but someone wrestling with himself. The forensic doctor also found bite marks and scratches on the killer's skin, a manifestation of severe psychological tension and disorder. This evidence showed the culprit did not fully control his behavior, possibly obsessed or under great psychological pressure before the act. This made Philo Vance reconsider the motive and nature of the criminal. A deeper analysis of the crime scene also revealed that the disturbed objects were not due to ordinary haste, but showed signs of a strong emotional outburst, as if the killer lost control for a moment, leaving signs of chaos and panic. These new clues opened a completely new dimension for the investigation. The culprit was not simply motivated by material gain or personal hatred, but could be caught in a deep psychological obsession, making behavior unpredictable and much more dangerous. Philo Vance began to reassess the testimonies and behaviors of family members with a fresh perspective. The previous unusual signs, odd actions, and contradictory attitudes were now placed in the context of someone suffering from psychological disorder or obsession. This helped him discover many contradictions and hidden details that had previously been overlooked. Edward, Clara, and James, Nathaniel's children, all had moments of losing control, impulsive actions, and tense words. Philo began to question, was any of them under such psychological pressure that they could no longer control their actions? Had someone been haunted to the point of acting in an inexplicable way? The autopsy also raised doubts about the connection between the murderer and the victim, suggesting it was not simply family conflict or a fight over inheritance. There might be deeper secrets, unspeakable grievances that pushed the killer to a desperate psychological state, creating a dangerous obsession. With experience and keen insight, Philo Vance started focusing on exploring the family member's psychology, searching for signs and changes in behavior to identify who might be most severely affected. He collaborated with psychologists to build accurate psychological profiles, revealing deep secrets in each individual's soul. The story of the Greene Mansion murder was not just an investigation of a crime, but a journey into psychological shadows, where inner turmoil, obsession, and hidden pain became decisive factors. Amid the darkness of mysteries and conflicts, the light of truth was gradually illuminated by Philo Vance's intellect and relentless perseverance. Yet the path ahead remained long and dangerous, as the killer could suddenly erupt at any moment, and the truth might be more horrifying than anyone imagined. In the dim light of the interrogation room at the Greene Mansion, Detective Philo Vance keenly felt the rapid breaths and taut nerves of everyone present. Mr. Chester's horrific murder was no longer merely a family matter or an ordinary crime. It had become a maze of mysteries, schemes, and chaotic emotions that Vance had to carefully decode step by step. To advance the investigation and break the veil of secrecy surrounding the case, Philo decided to expand the team with the participation of the renowned forensic doctor, Dr. Helena Marlowe, and prosecutor William Cross, known for his firmness and integrity. The combination of sharp forensic expertise, rigorous legal experience, and Philo's keen intellect promised to clarify many unresolved issues. Dr. Marlowe, in her pristine white coat and cold yet insightful gaze, entered the mansion like a cold wind bearing truth. She quickly analyzed the physical evidence gathered, from blood samples to suspicious poison traces, meticulously examining every detail with utmost precision. Moreover, she paid close attention to psychological signs on the bodies of both victim and perpetrator, coordinating with Philo's observations to offer profound insights into the motives and psychological states of the suspects. Her understanding of physiological and psychological manifestations opened a new approach where seemingly disconnected clues began to link into a coherent chain. Meanwhile, Prosecutor William Cross took on not only the legal role, but also applied necessary pressure on suspects and witnesses. With his strictness and sharp questioning, he helped expose lies and cover-ups, pushing the investigation to new limits. The smooth collaboration between Philo, Helena, and William formed a powerful trio. Each complemented the other's gaps, together delving deeper into the complex world of the Greene family, where kinship, greed, and betrayal intertwined in every corner. Through each interrogation session, each crime scene examination, and each legal hearing, the trio gradually peeled away the layers of pretense and deceit. Secrets long thought buried began to surface, along with hidden motives and carefully crafted malicious plans. One of the crucial discoveries was the presence of a rare poison, identified by Dr. Marlowe as the indirect cause of Mr. Chester's death. This poison not only reduced the victim's ability to resist, but also produced symptoms that were difficult to detect, causing many family members to miss the warning signs in time. Prosecutor William Cross quickly leveraged this solid forensic evidence to pressure the suspects, forcing them to confront the truth. The interrogations became more intense than ever, as lies could no longer conceal the increasingly clear reality. Philo Vance focused not only on physical clues, but also on the inner conflicts and psychological expressions of the Greene family members. Together with Dr. Marlowe and Mr. Cross, he created a comprehensive picture of the case, where every small detail carried significant meaning. The atmosphere in the Greene mansion grew heavier as the investigation deepened. Suspicion, fear, and dark conspiracies were gradually revealed through testimonies and evidence. Each step taken by the investigative trio brought them closer to the truth, but also deeper into a dangerous vortex full of shocks and risks. Throughout the process, Philo Vance was not only the investigator, but also the guide, steering the Greene family through the storm of betrayal and deception, with the ultimate hope of finding justice and liberation for the souls trapped in darkness. As night fell over the ancient mansion, the pale yellow lights remained on, and the interrogation room echoed with urgent voices, probing questions, and bitter confessions. The investigation was far from over, but with the support of the forensic doctor and the prosecutor, Philo Vance was steadily expanding the light of truth, dispelling the dark veil that shrouded the Greene family. In the gloomy darkness of the Greene mansion, just as most clues seemed to be uncovered and the prime suspects were dismissed one by one, a shocking truth overturned the entire investigation. The real culprit was not the quarrelsome biological children, but Ada Greene, the quiet and overlooked adopted daughter of the family. Ada Greene, adopted many years ago by Mr. Nathaniel and Mrs. Margaret, had always lived in the shadows of conflict and suspicion. She was not respected like the biological children, living in distance and silently observing every upheaval in the family. But few knew that inside her soul was a raging obsession, driven by the crime novels she had been addicted to since childhood. Detective Philo Vance began to focus on Ada as testimonies and evidence gradually excluded the main suspects. Ada appeared little, spoke little, and always avoided his gaze during interrogations. Yet that silence was the perfect cover for the dark thoughts and elaborate plans she harbored. By analyzing the evidence and comparing it with crime scenes, Philo noticed strange details that only someone deeply knowledgeable about criminal tactics could leave behind. Ada, with her passion for studying famous crime cases through books, had learned and applied that knowledge in reality, from staging fake crime scenes, misleading the police, to using poison and orchestrating complex situations to conceal her actions. Ada's motive was not only to seize the Greene family's large fortune, but also a silent revenge for feeling abandoned and disadvantaged within the family. She felt always treated as an outsider, living in others' shadows, and seizing the inheritance was not just about money, but about asserting herself, proving she was no less than anyone else. Philo confronted Ada in a tense interrogation. At first, she remained silent, evasive, and denied all accusations. But under the pressure of irrefutable evidence, from poison traces matching bottles found in her room, to notes outlining her plans discovered in her bedroom, and testimonies from servants witnessing suspicious actions, the truth gradually emerged. Ada finally broke down in tears, confessing all her actions. She recounted the story of a deeply hurt girl, a passionate crime story enthusiast, who had devised a plan to kill Mr. Chester to free herself from oppression and gain the power she had long desired. Ada's confession was not only the climax of the case, but also a wake-up call about the buried wounds within the Greene family, about loneliness and the darkness of the human soul when driven to despair. The emergence of the real culprit, Ada Greene, shocked not only the Greene family, but also the investigators. The story of an adopted daughter, seemingly weak, turned out to be the one pulling strings and controlling everything in the shadows, forcing everyone to rethink what had happened. In the days that followed, the Greene mansion grew unusually silent as darkness gradually gave way to the light of truth. But the price of truth was too high, as the wounds within the family had now become deeper than ever. Philo Vance ultimately knew that he had completed an important part of the journey toward justice, but the story of the Greene family still had many chapters left unwritten, and the darkness of the past always lurked ahead. The cold light of a spotlight pierced through the old window frame of the Greene mansion, reflecting each beam as if illuminating the deepest, hidden corners of the house, as well as the darkness in the soul of a murderer hiding beneath a perfect mask. Ada Greene, the unnoticed adopted daughter who always carefully observed every change in the family, had crafted a sophisticated murder plan and staged a fake crime scene to deceive everyone. From the beginning, Ada knew she had no real place in the Greene family. She lived in silence and loneliness, whispers never meant for her, the contemptuous eyes of the biological children, and the overwhelming shadow of the powerful deceased father. But inside, Ada burned a smoldering fire, urging her to prove herself and take revenge for the years of abandonment. Ada's plan started by carefully studying every habit and schedule of Mr. Chester Greene, whom she saw as the biggest obstacle to her interests. She devoured books about crime, learning sophisticated methods to kill without leaving traces, how to create fake crime scenes to fool the police and relatives. In the days before the fateful night, Ada quietly prepared the necessary tools: a rare poison bought from the underground market, items to falsify evidence, and documents to create misinformation. She showed no signs, maintaining a quiet demeanor, caring for Mrs. Margaret like a dutiful daughter, and avoiding fiery family arguments. On the night of the murder, Ada executed the plan coldly and precisely. She sneaked into Mr. Chester's room while he was asleep, injected poison that gradually made him unconscious, then delivered the fatal shot to stage the scene as an ordinary murder. But that was not all. To mislead the investigation, Ada disturbed the crime scene, creating fake traces like footprints, bloodstains, even using a watch that had been disassembled and reassembled to distort the timeline. She also fabricated threatening messages to make everyone suspect each other and push the investigation into a dead end. In the days following, Ada continued to maintain her guise as a good, quiet daughter who appeared sorrowful over Mr. Chester's death. But Detective Philo Vance, with his extensive experience and sharp intuition, began to uncover irregularities in the story. By analyzing the signs at the crime scene, cross-referencing with testimonies and the psychological behaviors of the family members, Philo gradually uncovered contradictions and details that could not be explained by mere lies. From the meticulously tampered evidence to forged documents, from Ada's changing attitude to clues overlooked by others, all led in one direction. In the final interrogation, faced with irrefutable evidence, Ada had no way to escape. She broke down in tears, confessing to the entire carefully planned conspiracy to seize the estate and free herself from the shadow of the Greene family. Ada's confession shocked the entire mansion, shattering the false facade and clarifying the whole case. All conflicts, suspicions, and questions that had baffled the family and police were now resolved. But the price of truth was too high. The Greene family had lost not only their father, but also trust and unity. The wounds in each person's heart deepened, and the mansion, once a home, became a cold witness to tragedy and painful memories. Philo Vance, though having completed his duty, knew this story would echo in his mind forever. For in every case, there are not only villains and victims, but also people caught in the whirlpool of ambition, despair, and betrayal. The suffocating Greene mansion, where secrets and darkness had seeped into every brick, had seemed to Philo Vance that the murder of Mr. Chester had revealed all its gloomy corners. Yet, it was only the beginning. Ada Greene, the adopted daughter exposed as the culprit, had not stopped her malicious plans, and as she began targeting another family member, the tension and danger in the Greene mansion reached its peak, turning everything into a deadly battle with no escape. Since being discovered and arrested, Ada seemed to have ended her schemes. But her reckless nature and deep obsession with power and wealth drove her to continue this dangerous game. She knew that unless she eliminated the remaining family members, they might unite to oppose her and reclaim what she was trying to seize. Edward, the eldest son and Ada's chief enemy, became her next target. With cold calculation and meticulous preparation, Ada devised a perfect trap to quietly eliminate Edward without detection. She exploited the pervasive confusion and suspicion within the family to spread more rumors and false signs to isolate Edward further. Meanwhile, Ada secretly sought opportunities to approach Edward, using a strong sedative she had carefully hidden before, a drug capable of putting the victim into a deep coma, enough for her to carry out her plan. One stormy night, while Edward was in his study, Ada quietly approached with an appearance as ordinary as any other servant. She slipped the sedative into the glass of water Edward habitually drank from. The clear drops contained not only the drug, but also Ada's dark hope for power and fortune. Edward did not notice anything when the drug took effect. His body gradually collapsed, losing all strength, and in his vague dreams he could not realize he was being watched. But Ada's reckless action did not pass as easily as she thought. Philo Vance, with sharp experience and high alertness, noticed the abnormalities in the very first moments. He had been closely monitoring the family members since the first murder, and as soon as Edward showed unusual signs, Philo intervened promptly. He quickly coordinated with medical staff to examine and care for Edward, while beginning an investigation into the origin of the poison found in the water glass. Newly uncovered traces and evidence gradually revealed Ada's sophisticated and dangerous plan. As the investigation continued, tension within the Greene family kept escalating. The members now faced not only physical dangers, but also battles with growing distrust and widespread panic. Everyone knew that Ada was not only a murderer, but also a dangerous wolf lurking to destroy everything. During the intense interrogations, Ada maintained a cold calmness, but her eyes flashed with a fierce and desperate madness. She did not hesitate to challenge Philo and everyone else, warning that many surprises still awaited ahead. The murder case at the Greene mansion had transformed from a mystery about death into a tense, breathless fight for survival. Ada's recklessness and next schemes made everyone realize that a single small mistake could lead to an irreparable disaster. Philo Vance, though experienced with many complex cases, also sensed the danger of the situation. He understood that to end this chain of tragedy, he needed not only to find the culprit, but also to protect the remaining family members from Ada's ruthless hands. Amid the dense darkness and wicked plots, the light of truth and justice was still lit by sharp intellect and relentless perseverance. Yet the story of the Greene family, with unhealed wounds and unrevealed secrets, continued on with an uncertain outcome. The flashing headlights from the police car illuminated the ancient walls of the Greene mansion, creating interwoven patches of light and shadow, reflecting the secrets and fears reigning in every room. That night, everything seemed to hold its breath in waiting, as an important arrest was being prepared, a decisive turning point to end the gloomy and dangerous days of the Greene family. Ada Greene, the foster daughter with a gentle appearance but a soul full of dark schemes, had become Detective Philo Vance's #1 target along with the police team. After reckless actions and discovered criminal plots, Ada had no choice but to face the truth. Philo Vance, with keen intuition and rich experience, closely coordinated with the police to monitor every step of Ada. They knew she might continue to commit dangerous acts to hold onto power and property. Every move of Ada was closely watched, from secret meetings to unexpected appearances. The arrest night was planned meticulously and tightly. When Ada was at her most tense and easily agitated state, the investigation team raided her house. The small room where Ada hid was quickly surrounded. She tried to escape, experiencing moments of panic, but under the overwhelming pressure of law enforcement and Detective Philo, she could not break free. The police found many items in Ada's room, from bottles of poison, detailed plans about the case, to diary pages carefully recording every step and intention of hers. Each page was like a silent confession, proving the danger and meticulous calculation in Ada's mind. Philo Vance stood beside, his eyes reflecting not only the triumph of justice, but also a deep understanding of a person caught in the whirlpool of ambition and despair. He knew that arresting Ada was not simply ending a murder case, but opening the door to healing and rebirth for the Greene family. The arrest took place in tense silence, broken only by the sound of handcuffs and decisive commands echoing in the night. Ada, though captured, still shone with determination and a hint of madness, as if still harboring the intent to resist to the end. Soon after, Ada was taken for further interrogations and investigations. The story of the mysterious foster daughter, once forgotten and now the culprit of the Greene family tragedy, shocked not only the investigation community but also public opinion. This event marked a crucial turning point, creating an opportunity for the Greene family to gradually erase the shadows and suspicions, moving toward a more peaceful future. But the price for the truth was not small, as the wounds within each person were still unhealed. Philo Vance, with deep eyes, knew he had completed his mission, but also understood that the story of the Greene mansion would forever remain a lesson about power, ambition, and the cost of betrayal. In the cold interrogation room of the Greene mansion, the flickering yellow light reflected on the calm yet sharp face of Detective Philo Vance. More than ever, he knew that every answer, every clue, lay within the very people sitting around the table, in the secrets they tried to hide, and in the tangled pieces of this dark story. The murder of Mr. Chester Greene seemed to have been revealed with the arrest of Ada Greene, the once overlooked foster daughter exposed as the culprit, but Philo Vance could not accept that everything was that simple. He sensed that beneath the thick veil of lies and cover-ups, there remained deep secrets, masks yet to be removed. With experience and keen insight, Philo began the journey of uncovering the truth by compiling all physical evidence, testimonies, and psychological analyses. Every detail, no matter how small, was carefully examined to find the closest connections possible. The dismantled clock, fake footprints, mysterious poison, these were not just physical evidence, but psychological signs of a perpetrator wanting to create a perfect drama to conceal themselves. Philo realized the culprit was not only a cold criminal, but also someone deeply obsessed, living in a complex psychological labyrinth filled with conflicts. He began to analyze more deeply the behaviors and reactions of the Greene family members. From evasive glances, ambiguous words, to sudden emotional outbursts, all were important puzzle pieces. Philo realized that each person in the family carried their own pains, deeply rooted conflicts accumulated over years, which were the source of motive for the case. Combined with testimonies from the forensic doctor, prosecutor, and psychologists, Philo gradually built a comprehensive picture of the case. He understood that Ada Greene, though the direct culprit, was not the only one responsible. The schemes and calculations were woven by many, including the involvement, or at least the silent complicity, of family members. The investigation expanded, and the light of truth gradually pierced through the thick veil of pretense and hatred. Shocking secrets, hidden conspiracies, and piled-up emotions were uncovered layer by layer, revealing a story not just about crime but about betrayal, greed, and tragedy of a powerful family. Philo Vance, with sharp intellect and tireless perseverance, finally connected all clues, peeled off each mask of deception to reveal the truth. The Greene murder case was no longer a mystery, but a painful lesson about greed, loneliness, and the price of power. In the final moment of the investigation, when all evidence was laid on the table, when testimonies were cross-checked and truths unveiled, Philo Vance stood before the Greene family and the investigation team, his eyes shining with the light of truth and justice. The lives, relationships, and fate of the Greene family were now determined by undeniable truth, but also the deepest wounds were exposed, leaving everyone with unforgettable lessons. The dawnlight filtered through the gaps between the leaves, shining through the antique glass windows of the Greene mansion. The fresh morning air carried a new breath, like a promise of change and a new beginning. After days immersed in the darkness of suspicion, hatred, and tragedy, the truth was finally revealed, and the Greene family turned to a new chapter, a chapter of liberation and hope. The murder case of Mr. Chester Greene, which once shocked the entire city with its tangled details and widespread doubts, had now been thoroughly solved by Detective Philo Vance and his investigative team. The real culprit, Ada Greene, the overlooked adopted daughter, was brought to light with irrefutable evidence. The story of conspiracies, reckless acts, and staged crime scenes was clearly unveiled, ending the days of confusion and anxiety. Philo Vance, leading the investigation, stood quietly observing each family member, those who had endured months of grief, suspicion, and loss. His eyes were not only the light of truth, but also a ray of hope for reconciliation and healing. The truth was not simple. It contained deep wounds and injuries that could not be erased immediately. But the fact that the truth was made public helped untangle the knots in their minds, dispelling doubts and lies that had shattered the Greene family. The members began to look at each other with different eyes, the eyes of forgiveness, empathy, and a newly rebuilt trust from the ruins. They realized that although the wounds in their hearts remained, only truth and compassion could be the key to opening the door to peace. Mrs. Margaret, the frail yet strong mother, became a symbol of perseverance and unconditional love. She sat beside her children, no longer passive but becoming a guide, advising them to overcome difficulties together and heal their wounds. Edward, Clara, and James, the ones once suspected, the center of quarrels and mistrust, gradually learned to forgive and understand. They began to reflect on themselves, recognizing mistakes and what needed to change to preserve family unity. Philo Vance, leaving the mansion under the morning sunlight, knew that his mission was not only to find the culprit, but also to sow the seeds of recovery and reconciliation. He believed that no matter how deep the wounds were, truth was always the firmest foundation to rebuild trust and love. The Greene mansion, after days submerged in darkness and tragedy, gradually brightened with the light of truth and hope. Doors once tightly closed were now opened wide, welcoming a more peaceful future, where laughter and shared stories would replace suspicion and pain. The story of the Greene family stands as a testament to the power of truth and forgiveness, a lesson on how to overcome the darkness of the past to move toward the light of the future.